So, good afternoon everyone, and we are the last group, Group 5. So, but first, before we proceed po sa aming discussion, meron po muna kaming inihandang icebreaker para sa inyo. So, ang theme po ng aming icebreaker ay, next slide po, Jollibee, ayan. So, ang title po ng aming icebreaker ay, next slide po, Choose Your Order. So, next slide. So, instruction. The Jolly host will choose 5 participants to answer the random questions. The participants will choose their order from the Jollibee menu with an equivalent question. After correctly answering the Jolly question, they will be rewarded a Jolly Kiddie Meal toy. So, next slide po, and let's start it. So, sino pong pwedeng unang sumagot po sa ating... Okay. Go, Miss Ivana. Pili po kayo. Ano pong order niyo?
Burger steak po.
So, burger steak. So, ang kanyang Jolly question ay, a polygon with 8 sides. So, ano pong answer nyo?
Octagon po yung answer.
So, tingnan natin kung octagon nga ba. Next slide po. Ayan, tama, octagon. So, ang kanyang Jolly Kiddie Meal niya ay, next slide po. Yay, congratulations, meron kang Kung Fu Panda. So, next slide po. So, next, sino pong pwedeng tumagot? Ayan, go po, Mr. Rivano. Ano po order?
Yung ano po, Coke float.
Okay, Coke float. So, ang kanyang Jolly question ay, how many degrees are in a right angle? So, ano
I
po ang
think
sagot?
po ano po, 90 po.
Ayan, tingnan nga natin kung 90 nga ba. Ayan, 90 nga. So, ang kanyang Jolly Kiddie Meal ay, next slide po. Ayan, congratulations, meron kang twirly. So, next slide po. Sino pa pong pwedeng Ayan, okay, again. Okay, si Miss Caro naman po.
Burger steak.
Burger steak daw ulit. So, ang kanyang Jolly question ay, it deals with predicting the likelihood of future events. So, ano pang inyong sagot?
Is it probability?
Okay, tingnan nga natin kung probability nga ba. Yes, congratulations, probability. So, ang kanyang Jolly Kiddie Meal ay, meron kang Patrick Star. So, congratulations. So, next naman po. Tapa po. Sino pa pong pwede? Okay. Miss Marshall, ano pong order nyo?
Sa akin po yung family bundle.
Okay, yung family bundle. So, ang kanyang question ay, give 3 words that define math.
3 words po that define math for me is number 1, numbers, number 2, calculations, and number 3, figures.
Ayan, very good. Tingnan natin kung ano kanyang Jolly Kiddie Meal. Yes, congratulations. Meron kang Wonder Woman collectibles. So, last na po. Ay, sino po pong pwedeng sumagot? Okay, Mr. Rivano.
Ano po, yung Yum Burger with fries kung hindi pa napipili.
Okay. So, ang kanyang Jolly question ay, it is a whole number that can be positive, negative, or zero. Ano pong yung sagot?
Ano po, integer.
Okay, tingnan natin kung integer nga ba. Ayan, tama, integer. And ang kanyang Jolly Kiddie Meal ay, tingnan nga natin. Congratulations, meron kang Jollibee. So, thank you so much po sa lahat ng mga nag-participate, and let's proceed na po sa aming discussion. Thank you!
So, ayan. Once again, good day everyone. I'm Ivana together with Miss Tumayaw, Miss Hanineng, Miss Caro, Miss Marshall, Mr. Pancho, and Mr. Ivano. Today, we're excited to discuss our topic about assessing intermediate student and mathematics. But before we delve deeper to our discussion, let's explore our objectives. Next slide po. At the end of the lesson, students should be able to define student learning assessment and its purposes, recognize the importance of student learning assessment in informing effective teaching practices, demonstrate their knowledge in assessing intermediate student and mathematics. Ayan. Heart react naman po kung ready na po tayo sa ating discussion. Ayan, mukhang ready na po. Next slide po. So, what is student assessment and why is it important? So, according kila Estasen, dinefine nila yung assessment as the systematic collection and analysis of information to improve student learning. Ibig sabihin po, teachers gather and study information para maintindihan how well the students are learning through assessment. And through assessment po, ma-identify natin kung ano pa yung alam ng students or yung tinatawag nating prior knowledge or kung saang area pa nila mas kailangan ng tulong or kung anong teaching method ba yung mas gagana sa kanila. And syempre, by assessing how well students are learning, nabibigyan tayo nito ng valuable feedback hindi lang sa students kundi sa ating mga teacher din. So dito nakikita rin natin if na-achieve na ba natin yung learning goals natin and kung ano pa nga yung mga need natin na i-improve. So according naman kala Grant Wiggins and J. McTighe, yung sa Understanding by Design nila, which wherein they offer a framework for classroom instruction at tinatawag nila itong backward design. So dito sa libro nila, in-emphasize nila yung critical role of assessment. So para nga sa kanila, natutulungan ng assessment yung mga teachers to measure kung gaano na naiintindihan ng student yung itinuro and kung gaano pa sila ka-proficient in reaching yung sa mga course goal nga na meron sa kada lesson. And last bullet, the assessment provides the evidence needed to document and validate that meaningful learning has occurred. So dito, yung assessment nga, binibigyan niya tayo ng proof needed to confirm na yung students natin ay may natutunan sa atin. And yung gantong approach, sinasuggest nito na yung mga teachers and curriculum planners dapat ay mag-start na mag-isip like assessor bago sila mag-create ng specific lesson or unit. So, ibig sabihin, from the start pa lang dapat, nakakonsider na nila paano mag-grasp or mag-gets ng mga student yung mga key concept. And syempre, by doing this, they can design their lesson in a way na nakakatulong na ma-achieve yung mga specific learning goals na meron. And to discuss the form of assessment, I'm passing the floor to Ms. Tumayaw.
Now let's proceed with forms and purposes of student assessment. Two general forms of assessment. Una po dito is yung summative assessment. This one is implemented at the end of the course of study. So yung mga final exams or papers yung ginagamit to measure what students have learned throughout the entire course. So yung primary purpose po nato is to produce an evaluation that sums up students' learning. Ibig sabihin, yung summative assessment po is a type of evaluation na nangyayari nga at the end of the learning period. So, its primary purpose is makapag-provide ng summary of how much a student has learned. A summative assessment is a comprehensive in nature and is fundamentally concerned with learning outcomes. So, it looks at all important things students should know or be able to do by the end of that period. Summative assessment is crucial because it tells us if the learning goals have been achieved. Next is formative assessment. Involves the evaluation of student learning at intermediate points before any summative form. Ibig sabihin po neto is yung teacher evaluate yung understanding ng student sa kalagitnaan before yung summative form through a lesson or unit to see how they're doing. Sa ganitong paraan, natutulungan nito yung teacher to know if students are on track or if they need more help. Its fundamental purpose po kasi is to help students during the learning process. And ang main goal naman nito is to help students during learning process kung saan hinahayaan natin sila na makapag-reflect sa kanilang sariling progress and challenges so they may improve. So si teacher, observe niya yung performance ni student to see how they're doing through a test or any activity. And then share that information with other students naman. Dito, it helps students to see kung saan sila magaling and kung ano pa yung kailangan nilang improve. This process guides them to make positive changes in their learning journey. According din kay Pat, ni-refer niya ang formative assessment as assessment behind outcomes. So, hindi lang tungkol sa final result, it's also about understanding the whole process that leads to it. Ayan, next, include all manner of coursework with feedback discussion between instructors and student and end-of-unit examinations. A formative assessment is a way of evaluating student progress through a variety of activities. Gaya nga ng coursework that comes with feedback, classroom discussions between teachers and students, and tests at the end of a unit. Ito yung ganitong assessment nga yung makakatulong for student to figure out where they need to improve, and of course, mabibigyan din sila ng chance to work on those areas. And Sally Brown and Peter Knight in their book Assessing Learners in Higher Education point out a common mistake in teaching, confusing the method of assessment with the goal of assessment. So they say that people often think that certain methods like essays or exams are either formative or summative by themselves. But it's not the method that determines this, it's the purpose behind it. Okay, so formative assessment are meant to help students improve their feedback, while summative assessment are meant to evaluate what students have learned, usually without much feedback. Ayan, so summative and formative assessment indicate the purpose of assessment, not the method. Tatandaan po natin na ang summative and formative assessments are two different types of assessments, but they don't refer to specific methods. Instead, yung purpose ng assessment, ini-indicate nila. Again, ginagamit po yung summative assessment to evaluate student learning at the end of learning period, like final exam or end of term project. On the other hand, formative assessment are meant to give feedback during the learning process, like quizzes or drafts of an assignment.
So, ayan. So, assessment more than grading. So, assessment links student performance to a specific learning objective. So, when we talk about assessment, madaling isipin na, oh, it's just about giving grades, but that's not really the case. Excuse me. Assessment is more than just giving grades or yung pag-a-assign ng score sa output ng mga bata. Tungkol siya kung paano makokonect yung mga ginagawa ng student sa mga specific learning goals na meron. And sa gantong paraan, assessment gives helpful feedback sa teachers and student. For student, pinapakita na ito na may natutunan nga talaga sila and ano pa yung need na i-improve. Of course, for teachers, it provides insights into how well their teaching method na kung gaano yun ka-effective and kung ano pa yung kailangan baguhin sa teaching method na ginagamit nila. So, ayun. Grading, on the other hand, according naman kala Istasin ulit, merely involves affixing a number or a letter to an assignment. Grades are only the broadest of indicators of achievement or status. So, ayun nga, yung grades daw is a way of assigning a number or magbibigay ng score sa mga assignment or test. As we can see, basic lang yung idea na binibigay ng grades or yung pag-grading. Di natin talaga nakikita yung or di talaga nito binibigyan hindi niya tayo binibigyan ng mas malalim pa na information about dun sa mga students natin. Nakikita lang natin na how well they've done kumpara sa ibang students. Etong estudyante na to mas mataas yung grado niya kumpara sa isang estudyante, ganun. Minimal lang yung information na binibigay niya about specific learning goals or kung paano nakaka-help yung specific course na yon sa mga students na ma-meet yung learning goals na meron. So in short, grades don't provide much detail kung ano na ba yung natutunan ng mga students or kung ano na yung progress nila. So si grades, sinasabi lang niya kung saan yung stand ng student in terms of academic rank, graduation progress, scholarship, and future opportunities. So dahil nga naka-focus ang grades sa mga gantong bagay, students might miss the real point of assessment, which is to learn and grow. So pag shift natin yung focus natin sa mas malawak na understanding ng assessment, like yung mag-focus tayo sa knowledge and development, yung teachers and student ay mas makapag-focus sa totoong goal ng education, and yun nga, learning. And yung gantong shift, makakatulong to sa lahat na maalala or matandaan natin na education is more than just getting a high score. So, ayun. To continue our discussion, may I now call on Teacher Sanining.
Ayan, thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Unay. I am Roslyn Caro po, and in this part, we will be talking about the step-by-step assessment plan and the assessment plan itself of Barbara Walworth. And actually, this assessment plan na pag-uusapan natin, ayan, this is under the book of Barbara Walworth of 2010 entitled Assessment Clear and Simple, a Practical Guide for Institutions, Departments, and General Education. So basically, makikita natin dito how the author provides a guidance on developing effective assessment plans in various educational contexts, including assessing intermediate students in mathematics. So basically, this book emphasizes the importance of having a clear and intentional plan in assessment to promote fairness, consistency, and transparency in the assessment process of our learners. And she also stated there that without a well-thought-out assessment plan, there were several challenges that can arise, such as unclear goals, vague criteria, limited communication of criteria or feedback, invalid or unreliable assessments, unfairness in students' evaluation, and insufficient of unmeasured learning of the students. And to address these challenges, Walworth presents a step-by-step planning process for the assessment. And actually, there were 9 steps in assessment planning na pag-uusapan natin ngayon. And to start, next slide po please. Ayan, thank you po. The first step in an assessment plan as outlined by Barbara Walworth of 2010 is defining the learning goals when we assess our intermediate students in mathematics. So this step involves establishing clear and specific objectives that will outline what our students should know and be able to do at the end of the assessment. Ano ba yung mga kailangan nilang matutunan throughout the lesson, or what are the tasks that they will be doing, what are the performances that they will be performing, kung ano ba yung mga concrete learning objectives and outcomes na kailangan ma-meet ng mga learners natin at the end of the lesson for them to get ready on what they will need to comprehend and deliver at the end of the discussion. So by this first step, we can ensure that our assessments are aligned with the intended outcomes. Like for example, of learning goals in mathematics, it can include specific concepts or skills that our students should master, like the application of mathematical principles in real-world context and the development of mathematical communication and reasoning skills, yung mga ganyan. And by establishing a clear learning goals like that, we can design an assessment that will align with the intended outcomes, and we can also accurately measure our students' mathematical proficiency. Like for example, of a learning goal in mathematics, it would be the students will be able to solve linear equations with one variable. So in here, makikita agad natin yung specific mathematical concept and skills na kailangang ma-master ng mga students natin at the end of the discussion. Another example of learning goal in mathematics, this could be students will be able to apply geometric principles to solve real-world problems. Dito naman emphasize yung application ng mathematical concepts in practical concept. So sa mga ganitong learning goals in mathematics, yung magiging assessment natin dito na align with our goal could be presenting our students or give our students a real world problem scenarios that will requires them to use geometric principles. So ganyan siya magwo-work. Basta ang lagi natin tatandaan is when we are defining learning goals, it is important to consider the specific grade level and the mathematical content being assessed. Kung umaayon ba yung mathematical content natin and assessment natin sa specific grade level na tinuturuan natin. Meaning to say, our goal should be age-appropriate and aligned with the relevant curriculum standards or frameworks na sinusunod natin. So, ganun lang po siya. So far, may tanong pa po ba? Or we may proceed na po sa second step? Pa-heart react naman po kung wala pang question so far. Ayan, thank you po. Now, the second step in an assessment plan is defining assessment methods. So, after establishing clear learning goals, it is crucial for us teachers to select an appropriate methods for our students to effectively gather an evidence for their learning. And when we are defining assessment methods, we as teachers, we have the flexibility to choose from a range of options based on the learning goals and teaching context. And one of the most common assessment methods nga na ginagamit natin is with the use of quizzes, exams, projects, portfolios, presentations, at marami pang iba. Pero yung iba dyan is matatackle natin later on. And one example of an assessment method is a performance-based assessment like projects or presentations where we will be given our students the opportunity to demonstrate their understanding of mathematical concept na tinuro natin sa kanila through a creative and hands-on task. Another method is traditional assessments like quizzes and exams, where we teachers can assess our students' procedural knowledge by a quick recall. And in here, we can do multiple choices questions, fill in the blanks questions, or a short answer questions that can be used to evaluate their understanding to the mathematical concepts, formulas, or even the problem-solving techniques that were taught throughout the lesson. And in here, it is important to note that the selection of our assessment methods for our student should be driven by a specific learning goals and objectives of the mathematics curriculum by aligning the assessment with the desired outcomes. So with that, we teachers can ensure that our students' mathematical understanding is accurately evaluated. Okay po, naiintindihan pa naman? Ayan. Let us now proceed to the step number 3. Next slide po. Ayan. The third step in an assessment plan is developing the assessment itself. So once the learning goals and assessment methods have been established, it is crucial to formulate their formats, prompts, and performance criteria that will enable our students to effectively prepare and provide a valid and reliable evidence of their learning. So in here, it emphasizes the importance of developing assessment materials that is aligned with the learning goals and provide students with a clear understanding on what we are expecting from them. So developing the assessment, it involves creating a clear and concise formats that will definitely guide our students in demonstrating their understanding to the lesson. And this can also include written assignments, presentations, projects, or performance-based tasks na mag-a-align sa learning goals natin for them, which will allow them to showcase their knowledge, their skills, and abilities effectively. So, itong mga to, the format, the prompts, and the performance criteria, they should be carefully crafted to guide our students and to also ensure that they address the desired learning outcomes for them to provide a clear understanding of what we will be expecting on them and what they will need to demonstrate in their responses or performances. So, we can see here that the development of performance criteria is really crucial when we assess our students' work. Why? It is because those criteria will outline the specific standards or expectations for evaluating our students' performances or works. And those criteria should be clearly communicated to our students to provide them a clear understanding of how their work will be evaluated to ensure the fairness, the consistency, and the reliability in the assessment process. And when we are formulating the assessment, consider the validity and reliability of the evidence collected. Eh ma'am, ano naman po yung validity and reliability of the evidence collected na yan? Sabi dito, validity refers to the extent to which an assessment measures what it intends to measure. So in other words, a valid assessment accurately captures the specific knowledge, skills, or abilities that was designed to assess. Like for example, if an assessment is intended to measure the student's problem-solving skills in mathematics, ang ipapagawa ba natin sa kanila is mag-drawing ng mga geometric shapes? So, syempre hindi po kasi it should be include tasks or questions na magre-require sa kanila to apply a problem-solving strategies to solve mathematical problems. So, that is validity. However, when we say reliability, on the other hand, this refers to the consistency and accuracy of the assessment's result. Meaning to say, a reliable assessment produces consistent results when it is administered to the same group of students under the similar conditions. So in other words, if the assessment is reliable, it should yield similar scores or outcomes when repeated measurements are taken to ensure that the assessment results are not affected by random factors or errors. So to enhance the validity and reliability of the evidence collected, it is important to develop a clear formats, clear prompts, and performance criteria. Where a clear formats, this will ensure that the assessment task or questions are well structured and aligned with the intended learning outcomes. Where the clear prompts will provide our students with the specific instructions and guidelines for completing the assessment. And the performance criteria, of course, is to outline the specific standards or expectations for evaluating our students' performance to ensure the consistency and the fairness in the evaluation process. So ayan, basta ang lagi natin tatandaan when we are about to develop an assessment, we have to create a clear formats, a clear prompts, and a clear and concise performance criteria. Next slide po. Ayan. So the fourth step in an assessment plan is integrating assessment with other course elements. So once the primary assessment methods have been chosen, they will become the foundation for designing other course elements such as reading assignments, skill building activities, lectures, discussions, and other learning experiences. So this integration will ensure that our students are adequately prepared to demonstrate their best effort in the assessment. So in the integrated course design as proposed by Lee Reed Fink on 2013, sabi ron, assessment methods are chosen early in the course design process and serve as a guiding force for the selection of the other learning activities. So what does it mean? So this means that this approach ensures that the assessment and the learning experiences are aligned, that reinforce each other and promotes a depth understanding and application of the course content. And in backward course design naman, as advocated by Grant Wiggins and J. McTighe on 2005, sabi ron, assessments are identified first, and then the course content and learning experiences are designed to support the students in achieving the desired learning outcomes. So by aligning the assessment with the learning experiences, we teachers will create a clear and purposeful pathway for our students to develop the necessary skills and knowledge that they need. And this integrating assessment with other course elements na sinasabi natin can involve designing reading assignments, skill building activities, lectures, discussions, and other learning experiences that will directly support and prepare our students for their assessments. Like for example, if the assessment requires a problem-solving skills, the course may include reading activities, that focuses on problem-solving strategies which will provide our students the opportunities to practice and offer, of course, feedback to enhance their problem-solving abilities. And one example of integrating assessment with the other course element is aligning the reading assignments with the assessment. Like, for example, if an assessment focuses on geometry, reading assignments could include relevant textbook chapters or articles that cover the necessary geometric principles that can provide our students with the necessary background knowledge that is needed to perform well in the assessment. Another example is aligning skill building activities with the assessment. So when we say skill building activities, this may include a problem solving exercises or practice worksheets that can directly support the development of the mathematical skills that being assessed. For example, if an assessment focuses on algebraic equations, skill building activities could involve solving various types of equations to reinforce the necessary skills needed to ensure that our students have an ample practice to perform well in the assessment. And aside from that, ang hindi naging nawawala is integrating assessment with lectures and discussions. So we teachers, we can use our lectures and plus discussions to address any misconceptions or areas of difficulty that our students may encounter in the assessment. And furthermore, we have to remember that by integrating our assessment with other course elements, we as teachers, we can create a cohesive and purposeful learning journey for our students. And this integration will ensure that our students have the necessary knowledge, have the necessary skills and necessary practice and support for them to perform well in the assessment. And that is integrating assessment with other course elements. So next slide po, please. Ayan, thank you po. The fifth step in an assessment plan is to effectively communicate about the assessment to students. So once the course has begun, it becomes essential to ensure that our students have a clear understanding of the assignments and their performance criteria. So in this fifth step, Barbara Walworth emphasizes the importance of multiple forms of communication to ensure our students' clarity and preparation. And this communicating about the assessment can take various forms to cater to different learning styles and preferences of our students. And some effective methods includes the assignment overviews in the syllabus, handouts with prompts and assessment criteria, rubrics with learning goals, model assignments, in-class discussion, and collaborative decision-making about prompts and criteria. So sa syllabus overview, this may include an overview of the assessment in the course syllabus. So we will be providing our students with the initial understanding of what is expected throughout the course. Sa handouts and prompts and criteria naman, we can provide handouts that will outline the specific prompts and assessment criteria for each assignment that will help our student to understand the expectations and requirements in the course. And in the rubrics with learning goals naman, is sharing rubrics with our will outline the performance criteria and learning goals for each assignment to help our students to understand how their work will be evaluated. So this is more likely to provide transparency and clarity that will allow our student to align efforts with the desired outcomes. Some model assignments naman, this will help our students to visualize the desired outcomes to guide their own work. And in engaging our students in class discussions, this will provide an opportunity for our students to ask questions, misconceptions, clarifications, and of course, to share their knowledge and insights in the lesson. And the last one here is the collaborative decision making. So in here, it involves students in collaborative decision making about prompts or criteria that can enhance their sense of ownership and engagement and allow them to contribute to the assessment process and ensures that the assessment are meaningful to their learning journey. So by utilizing these multiple forms of communication, we as teachers, we can ensure that our students have a clear understanding of the assignments, their expectations, and the criteria for evaluation. And this clarity will promote student preparation and fosters student clarity, a sense of fairness and transparency, engagement, and success in the assessment process. So again, the first 5 steps in assessment planning, it includes number 1, defining learning goals. The second step is defining assessment methods. Number 3 is developing the assessment. Number 4 is integrating assessment with other course elements. And the fifth step is communicating the assessment. So now, may I call on Ms. Sanining to discuss the next 4 steps in assessment planning.
Ayan, thank you. So next are the assessment cycle. This cycle includes the steps that follow after the assignment is given. First, administer the assessment. This is when we collect the assignments, exams, or projects na binigay ni teacher sa students. Next, analyze the results. We then analyze the results. Dito kukunin ng results. Dito na tayo mag-evaluate ng mga assignments na inassign natin sa ating mga students, which might involve grading essays, scoring tests, or evaluating projects based on the performance criteria. Third, communicate the results. After analyzing, pagtapos natin mag-grade or mag-evaluate, we communicate the results with feedback to students. The feedback should highlight their strengths and areas for improvement. And finally, reflect and revise. We take time to reflect on the assessment's effectiveness. Dito, sa reflecting part, may mabubuta yung questions kung did it accurately measure students' learning? If not, how can you revise it for future use? Reflection and revision are important to improve assessment plans in the future. Teachers should reflect on the assessment process and outcomes, identify areas for improvement, and make necessary revisions to enhance the assessment plan. So, hindi lang yung students yung need mag-improve, kundi tayo ng mga teacher. Titingnan natin kung manit ba natin yung expected learning goal na define natin yung first step. Reflecting on assessments allows us to improve our process for future iterations. So, in conclusion, effective assessment plans benefit everyone. By using clear assessment plans, we can promote improved learning, fair evaluation, and course improvement. Next slide po. Yeah. Methods of students' assessment. Assessment plays a crucial role in evaluating students' understanding and progress. It helps educators identify areas of improvement and guide their teaching strategies. The passage highlights the wide range of assessment methods available to educators, from informal checks on understanding to more elaborate performance tasks. There are numerous ways to assess students' learning, and this diversity allows educators to choose the most appropriate method based on the learning objectives and the nature of the subject being taught. Next slide po. Yeah. One of the commonly used methods of assessment is essays. And here's again Ms. Carol to delve deeper into this method and explore its significance. Thank you po.
Ayan, thank you, Ms. Meaning. Ayan, so one of the common methods of assessment when we are assessing our intermediate students in mathematics, ayon kay Sally Brown and Peter Knight of 1994, are essays. Next slide po. Yan, and according to Yuan S. Henderson of 1980, he highlights the importance of essays in promoting skill development and the cultivation of learning style or fostering a particular approach to learning. And additionally, the American Association of Colleges and Universities, or the AAC&U, recognizes intensive writing as a high-impact teaching practice that positively impacts student engagement, learning, and academic achievement. So when it comes to mathematics, essays can provide our students with the opportunities to apply their mathematical knowledge, and problem-solving skills in a more comprehensive and contextualized manner. And when we are assigning our learners to write mathematical essays, this will require them to articulate their understanding, to explain their reasoning, and to demonstrate their ability to apply mathematical concepts to real-world scenarios. And through the process of writing essays, our students can deepen their understanding to different mathematical concepts and develop a more nuanced perspective on the subject. And this also encourages our students to engage in our reflective thinking. It helps them to analyze complex problems and to synthesize information from various sources that will foster a learning style to emphasize critical analysis and independent thinking. And in addition to skill development, essays also provide an opportunity for our students to engage in the metacognition or the thinking about their own thinking. Because when our students is writing their essays, this will requires them to reflect on their learning process. They can also evaluate their strengths and weaknesses and identify the areas for improvement on their self. And this metacognitive assessment will help them to become more self-directed learners and empowers them to take ownership of their mathematical growth. And moreover, essays allow students to showcase their creativity and individuality in expressing their mathematical ideas. And mathematics is often viewed as a subject that solely relies on the logical and analytical thinking. However, through essays, students can demonstrate their unique perspectives, their personal experiences, and creative problem-solving approaches. And this will encourage a more holistic understanding of mathematics and promotes a diverse range of mathematical thinking to different learners. And to continue our discussion about the continuation of essays and the other student assessment methods, let me call on Ms. Marshall to discuss. Thank you po.
Thank you for that introduction about essay, Ms. Caro. Next slide po. So we can proceed to things to keep in mind about essays. Next slide po. Ayan, thank you po. So the first one is, essays are a common form of writing assignment in courses and can be either a summative or formative form of assessment depending on how the instructor utilizes them. So, yung essay or sanaysay in Tagalog, common assignment siya mapa elementary, high school, or college. So, hindi mawawala ang essay sa mga written work. Depende sa kung paano ginagamit ng teacher, pwedeng maging malaking bahagi ang essay ng grade mo bilang summative o maaaring ginagamit ito para masubaybayan yung progress mo sa pagkatuto, which is tinatawag na formative. The second one is essays encompasses a wide array of narrative forms and lengths, from short descriptive essays to long analytical or creative ones. So, yung essay ay meron siyang iba't ibang uri ng pag-narrate or ng length mula sa maikling descriptive essay hanggang sa mahabang analytical or creative writing. So, pwede rin tong maging isang maikling pagde-describe ng isang experience or isang opinion o pwedeng maging isang deep analyzation ng isang topic na kung saan kailangan ng malawak na pag-criticize. So, yung haba and style ng isang essay ay pwedeng magbago depende sa layunin o purpose ng writer at sa criteria na binigay ng teacher o instructor. Next slide po, please. Ayan, so the third one is, a common challenge of the essay is that students can use them simply to reiterate rather than analyze and synthesize information to make arguments. So, Yung isang common challenge ng mga essay ay yung gamitin lang 'to ng mga, estudyante para lang magtipon ng mga information without analyzing the details or looking at it as a whole. So, instead na magbigay ng original opinion na galing talaga sa kanila, nagiging parang, kumukuha lang sila ng information from various sources, tapos yun na yung ilalagay nila sa mismong essay. So, yung, ganitong paraan kasi ay hindi nagpapakita ng tunay na pag-unawa o kakayahan sa pag-iisip ng malalim. So, ayun kasi ayun nga kasi yung purpose ng essay, yung kunin yung sariling opinion mo sa binigay na topic. So, next naman is instructors commonly assume that students know how to write essays and can encounter disappointment or frustration when they discover that this is sometimes not the case. So, madalas iniisip ng mga teachers na alam ng mga students kung paano sumulat ng essay, at may mga times talaga na nadi-disappoint sila kapag below expectations yung mga pinapasang outputs ng mga students. So, yung ganitong case kasi ay nangyayari kapag kulang sa skills and knowledge yung students about sa paggawa ng essay, and kapag hindi nila alam kung ano ba talaga yung importance at purpose ng paggawa nito. So, tayo bilang future teachers, dapat handa tayo sa mga gantong cases na hindi lahat ng students ay maalam or magaling gumawa ng essay. So, pag naka-encounter tayo ng ganito, mas mabuti yung turuan natin sila kung ano yung right way. So, equip them with knowledge and syempre guide them sa process hanggang sa matuto sila. Next slide po, please. Ayan. Exams and time constraint, individual assessment. So, nasa exams naman tayo. So, examinations have traditionally been a gold standard of assessment, particularly in post-secondary education. So, many educators prefer them because they can be, first, highly effective. Second, they can be standardized. Third, they are easily integrated into disciplines with certification standards. And lastly, they are efficient to implement. So, yung exams talaga yung pinaka-tinuturing na form of assessment para matest yung knowledge ng students. So, ito din yung isa sa pinaka-effective kasi very efficient to na ipagawa. Next slide po. Yan. Things to keep in mind about exams. Next slide po. Yan. So the first one is, exams typically focus on the assessment of students' knowledge of facts, figures, and other discrete information crucial to a course. So typically, nagpo-focus yung exams sa pag-test ng knowledge based on facts. So more on fact-based ang exams na nagre-relate syempre sa kung anong subject pa yan. So lahat ng nasa exams, yung mga facts na itinuro sa klase. So, hindi siya more on opinion-based gaya ng essay. So, the second one is, exam questions can be multiple choice, true or false, or other discrete answer formats, or they can be an essay or problem solving. So, yan tayo, di ba, gumagawa tayo ng quiz bawat reporters ito sa subject natin na to. So, kadalasan yung form ng quiz natin, multiple choice, true or false, ganon. Sa ibang case, meron din namang essay type na exams, pero hindi siya common kapag math subject ang usapan, since mas pinofocus ng math yung facts and pag-solve ng problems. So, the third one is, exams can make significant demands on students' factual knowledge and therefore can have the side effect of encouraging cramming and surface learning. So, gaya nga ng binabanggit ko kanina, mas nakadepend yung exams sa factual knowledge ng students, kaya mas nakaka-encourage to ng surface learning. Like, very by the book yung knowledge ng students, so alam lang nila kung ano yung kinabisado nila. So with that, short term lang yung knowledge na yun, and hindi natatandaan yun ng students for long term. Next slide po. And the last one, the fourth, in the process of designing an exam, instructors should consider the following questions. So what have students been adequately prepared to meet exam expectation? So dapat alam natin kung hanggang saan lang yung alam ng mga students sagutin. Dapat prepared sila sa mga questions, hindi yung mga tanong na wala naman sa lesson kasi di talaga nila yan masasagot unless may prior knowledge na sila, which is not everyone's case. So next, what are the skills and abilities that students need to do well on the exam? So dapat alam din natin kung ano ba yung mga skills na dapat magamit ng students sa exams, like yung problem solving skills ba, yung critical thinking skills, and so on. Next is, how will this exam be utilized to enhance the student learning process? So, kung paano ba magagamit tong exam na to para ma-enhance yung progress ng students? Dapat di ka lang magpapa-exam para lang takutin yung mga students. So, dapat mas pinafocus ng exams mo yung improvement ng knowledge ng bawat students so that magkaroon sila ng progress after that exam. So that's all for things to keep in mind about essays and time-constrained exams or individual assessments. For the next topic, here is Mr. Pacho. Thank you.
So thank you, Ms. Marshall. Now let's proceed to the next topic about the self-assessment. So next slide po. So ang self-assessment naman po ay it involves applying success criteria related to a learning goal, reflecting on their efforts, identifying improvements, and adjusting the quality of their work. So para mas maintindihan po natin, ang self-assessment is a way of encouraging children to evaluate and assess their own learning. It's similar po sa peer assessment, later i-discuss po ng isa naming reporter. So, but instead of giving feedback to a partner, pupils give feedback to themselves. So the advantage of teaching children how to self-assess their work is that they have to think about what they've done well and what they could do better next time. So it's extremely important for children because it allows them to reflect on their work in order to improve and develop it further. So self-assessment encourages pupils to reflect and look at where they went wrong in order to help them improve for the future. Not only that, it's a fantastic way to encourage children to improve their own efforts and empower them to take control of their own learning. So next slide po. So next is things to keep in mind about self-assessment. So next slide po. So for the number one, self-assessment is when you evaluate your own work. So it involves po yung own judgment kung may natutunan ka ba or satisfied ka ba sa kinalabasan ng activity or task na binigay sa iyo ng teacher. So dito mo po makikita kung may natutunan ka ba sa lesson or sa discussion. So while yung self-grading is comparing your work to criteria na sinet by someone else, typically yung teacher. So the main difference lies who sets the standards. Yourself in self-assessment and someone else in self-grading. So despite including elements of self-grading, the final grades are determined by the instructor. So while you assess your work, your teacher assigns the final grade based on their evaluation against that criteria. So number two, before students can accurately assess their own work, they must grasp the learning objectives of the assignment. So these objectives or learning goals outline what students are expected to achieve. So for example po nito, if students are tasked with writing an essay, they need to understand the specific skills or knowledge they expected to demonstrate. So rubrics serve as structure guides that detail the criteria and expectations for the assignment. So they break down various aspects of the task and provide different levels of achievement po for each criterion. For instance, a rubric for an essay might include categories po such as yung organization, content, grammar, and yung creativity, along with description of what constitutes different levels of performance in each category, like yung poor, fair, good, and excellent. So rubrics can develop approach ensures that everyone involved understands the expectation and standards for the assignment. So importantly, rubrics need include specific grades. So instead, they should focus on describing the academic standards for each criterion. So this means clearly defining what qualities as strong or weak performance in each area rather than assigning yung numerical scores. So third, students often don't know how to judge their own work very well. So they may not see kung saan sila magaling or where they need to improve. So that's why it is important po na maturuan sila na how to evaluate their own work better. So when teachers give student tips and tricks for self-assessment, it helps them think more about their learning. So students learn to at their work, find what's good about it, and figure out what they can do better next time. So this makes them feel more responsible for their learning. So but teachers still need to give their own feedback kasi this helps make sure students get a fair evaluation. So feedback, teachers have experience and know what to look for. So their feedback is really helpful. So it can show how to get better at their work and improve their grades. So in short, teaching students to assess their own work is good for helping them and them learn and take charge for their learning. So, but teachers should also give feedback to make sure everything is fair and students get the help of they need to improve. So, next slide po. So for the fourth one, sometimes students also like me might not like it when teachers get involved in assessing their work. So this could be because they are not confident in their ability to judge their work objectively, or they used to just sitting back and letting the teacher do everything. So but yung research po nag-show po siya na that when students are asked to evaluate their work, their judgments are often similar to those of their teachers. So this happens po especially when the teacher has clearly explained what they're looking for in the assignment. So even though students might not or might resist at first, involving them in the assessment process can actually be really helpful in the end. So for the last one naman po, number 5, self-assessment techniques vary widely depending on the teacher and course, offering students numerous avenues for evaluating their own work. So examples include yung written, oral reflections where students discuss strengths and areas for improvement. So the compilation of portfolios, nagpapakita po siya ng progress and skills through collected work samples, the keeping logs of to document learn experiences over time, and instructor-student interviews aimed at facilitating reflective discussion on progress. So additionally po, students may engage in learner diaries or dialogue journals to regularly document learning experiences and thoughts, as well as yung mga post-test reflections po to analyze yung performance and identify po yung saan yung area yung nag-improve. So these diverse methods encourage students po to reflect on their own or on their learning in different ways po, fostering opportunities for enhancement and development. So teachers may employ a blend of these approaches or devise their own unique methods tailored to students' needs for self-assessment. So to delve deeper into our discussion, here's Ms. Tumayo and Mr. Rivano to discuss the peer assessment, things to keep in mind about peer assessment, and generative and reflective assessment.
Peer assessment is a collaborative learning technique where students evaluate their peers' work and receive their own evaluation. So it is rooted in active learning and adult learning theories. It gives a learner ownership of learning and focuses on the process. Peer assessment also offers students different performance models and technique opportunities, enabling greater preparation, reflection, and metacognitive organization. It also provides students with the opportunity to share experiences and learn from different styles or narrative forms of writing.
So thank you so much for that informative discussion about peer assessment, Ms. Tumayo. Now let's proceed to the things we need to keep in mind about peer assessment. So dito, i-discuss natin or iisa-isahin natin yung mga bagay na kailangan natin tandaan kapag dumadaan tayo sa proseso ng pag-assess sa ating mga peers. So next slide po. Ayun. So, here's the things we need to keep in mind about peer assessment. So, una dyan ay, sabi dito, similar to self-assessment, students benefit from clear and specific learning goals and rubrics. Again, this may be instructor-defined or determined through collaborative dialogue. So, sinasabi lamang dito na just like self-assessment, yung peer assessment daw ay nagbe-benefit din yung students sa rubrics or goals. And these rubrics or goals ay sinasabi na instructor-defined or through collaborative dialogue. When we say is instructor defined, ito yung klase ng rubric na kung saan yung instructor mismo yung nag-provide. For example, ito yung kind of rubric na naka-design talaga for that specific activity or kaya rubric na mismo siya na ginagamit niya all throughout ng journey niya sa pagtuturo. Ayun. Well, on the other hand, yung collaborative dialogue naman na rubric, ito yung rubric na nabuo because of discussion or because of palitan ng mga suggestions. Like for example, etong sa rubrics na ginagamit natin dito sa reporting, 'di ba? Nabuo natin siya because of our collaborative dialogue wherein nagsuggest tayo ng different words na pwede natin or different criteria na pwede natin ilagay sa rubrics. And ayun, dahil doon nakabuo tayo ng rubrics and ito na yung ginagamit natin when we're assessing our classmates sa pagre-report nila. Second is we have here yung also similar daw to self-assessment. It is important to not conflate peer assessment and peer grading since grading authority is retained by the instructor of record. So, what this means is that we need to remind ourselves na hindi dapat natin tignan ng pareho ang peer assessment at peer grading dahil bagaman parang pareho ang kanilang definition or coverage, sila ay magkaiba pa rin. So, yung peer assessment based sa na-search ko ay structured learning process para sa mga estudyante to critique and provide feedback to each other on their work. While peer grading, it takes two broad flavors, assessment, feedback to each other on their work. While peer grading daw, it takes two broad flavors. So, first is assessment ng product or yung naging outcome ng activity and assessment of the process whereas mas nakatuon yung assessment sa values or behavior ng kanyang kasama or peers through the activity. And at the end, kahit na-assess ka na ng peers mo, nasa instructor pa rin yung final decision for the grading or for the final assessment. Sa tingin nyo, bakit kaya nasa professor or sa instructor pa rin yung huling grading or huling assessment? Anyone? Sinong nakakaalam? So, try natin si Miss Unay. Miss Unay, ano kaya sa tingin mo yung dahilan?
Paulit po ng tanong.
Sa tingin mo po, bakit or ano yung reason kung bakit nasa professor or nasa instructor pa rin yung huling say or huling grading or assessment sa mga estudyante?
As I see it po, siguro to avoid biases and promote fairness po.
Ayun. So, tama naman. Tama yung sinagot ni Miss Unay to avoid biases and to promote fairness. So dito yan sa number 3. So sabi dito sa number 3, while student peer assessments are most often fair and accurate, they sometimes can be subject to bias. So admit it or not, there are instances kasi na when we're assessing our peers o kaya sa group works man o collaborative works man yan, may instances kasi na maging bias tayo. Like for example, si Miss Unay tsaka si Miss Marshall ay magkaibigan. So kapag itong si Miss Unay nag-perform siya na maayos dun sa discussion, like for example, hindi siya properly nag-perform doon sa discussion, since nga kaibigan siya ni Miss Marshall, so yung way of assessing ni Miss Marshall ay hindi na magdedepende sa kung paano nag-perform si Miss Unay, kundi magbe-base na lang siya kasi friend niya, for example, friend niya nga si Miss Unay, so tataasan niya. So on the other hand naman, like for example, yun nga, may mga instances na nagiging unfair siya. Like, for example, may galit, personal na galit ko dun sa tao. So, ang nangyayari, since may personal na galit ko dun sa tao, hindi mo siya ina-assess or hindi mo siya nag-gradean based on her or his performance. Bagkus naka-base ka na dun sa hate mo na lang. So, kapag nagkataon na gano'n na mangyayari, mayroon kang biases and pinapairal mo yung personal na reasons mo, may possibility na hindi mo ma-assess na maayos or hindi mo mabigyan ng proper feedback yung peers mo. Nagigets po ba? Pa-heart track naman if nagigets. Ayun. So, we have here na sabi dito, students may not have the disciplinary expertise or assessment experience of the instructor and therefore can issue unsophisticated judgments of their peers. Therefore, to avoid unfairness, inaccuracy, and limited comments, formative peer assessments may need to be supplemented with instructor feedback. Just like what I've said earlier, na hindi lang dapat natatapos sa mga students yung pag-assess. Bagkus meron din dapat feedback yung instructor kasi it's very important na maka-receive ng feedback from the instructor. 'Di ba? Like parang mas maayos, mas alam mo, mas sure ka na yung kung paano ka in-assess ay tama or based talaga kung ano yung mga pwedeng sabihin ng teacher mo na kung ano yung mga bagay na i-improve mo, kung saan ka nag-excel, and so on and so forth. So, ayun. Next slide po. Ayun. So that ends po pala the things we need to keep in mind about peer assessment. Now let's proceed to the generative and reflective assessment. So ano nga ba tong generative and reflective assessment? So kapag sinabi po natin generative assessment, from the word generative, which means capable of production or reproduction, so yung generative assessment, this allows us for continuous assessment from a teacher perspective because in this type of assessment, the teacher can focus on students' responses at an individual and group levels. While sa students' perspective naman, it allows them for multiple types of feedback, including from a teacher or, other students. Nagigets po ba? Ayun. Now let's proceed to the reflective assessment. So ano nga ba ano naman tong reflective assessment? So dito sa reflective assessment, from the word reflective, which means providing a reflection, it says na sa reflective assessment daw ay based siya sa reflective learning. It is simply taking a reflective learning exercise and using it as a tool to assess the learning of the learner. So, aside from that, reflective learning daw ay generally reviewed as a skill and way of looking back over a learning experience. So, improving performance by using the feedback or outcomes of reflection to inform future practice and turning surface learning into deep learning. So, that's the generative and reflective assessment. Next slide po. Ayun. So let me read this. So whatever plan and method you use, assessment often begins with an intentional clarification of the values that drive it. While many in higher education may argue that values do not have a role in assessment, we contend that values, for example, rigor, always motivate and shape even the most objective of learning assessments. Therefore, as in other aspects of assessment planning, it is helpful to be intentional and critically reflective about what values animate your teaching and the learning assessments. So it requires assessments it requires. So there are many values that may direct learning assessments, but common ones include rigor, generativity, practicability, co-creativity, and full participation. So what do these characteristics mean in practice? So let me discuss it one by one. So next slide po. Ayun. So let's discuss first what is rigor. So yung rigor na to, hindi to yung nasa FPJs ang Batang Quiapo. So yung rigor dito, in the context of learning assessment, rigors means aligning our methods with the goals we have for our students. For validity, reliability, fairness, and doing no harm. In short, rigor encourages us that if we put it into practice, we must align our methods sa kung ano nga ba ang goals na meron tayo para sa mga estudyante. Ayun. If ang goal natin ngayong araw, for example, ay turuan sila ngayon ng addition, then tuturuan mo sila ng addition. Or if ang goal today is turuan sila ng division or kaya ng integers, for example, then tuturuan mo sila ng division or integers. Nakukuha po ba? I hope nakukuha nyo. And also, yung rigor, it does not simply mean giving students more or harder work. Di ba pag sinabi kasi natin rigorous, parang talagang sobrang hard, sobrang lala nung activity. Pero dito sa rigor na sa learning assessment, it doesn't simply mean giving students more or harder work. Instead, it's the result of work that challenge students thinking in a new and interesting ways. So that is rigor. Now let's proceed to the next one, which is the generativity. So what is generativity? So sa context naman ng learning assessment, mas magiging effective ito kapag gumagawa sila ng conditions for the emergence of new knowledge and practice, including student learning and skill development, as well as instructor pedagogy and teaching methods. So, Ayan. So yung generativity ay it opens up rather than closes down possibilities for discovery, reflection, growth, and transformation. Kumbaga, this kind of assessment, when put into practice, won't hinder nor block the possibilities of discoveries. For example, sa isang klase, may isang estudyante na nag-solve, then yung solution niya ay different from the solution of the teacher. Kumbaga, di ba, minsan kasi, meron ng provided ng way of computation yung instructor. So, for example, yung estudyante ay different yung way of computation niya dun sa instructor. So, ang gagawin ng instructor, instead na, like sabihin na, ay, mali yung way of computation mo, ito instructor, ang gagawin niya is, parang i-convince niya or sasabihin niya sa mga estudyante niya na there's possible na yung gano'n na may different na different way of computation. So ayun, kumbaga since nga yung generativity, it supports discovery, growth, transformation, and so on and so forth. Imbis na sabihin na teacher na mali yung ginawa ng estudyante, pwede niya sabihin na may iba pa palang way na type of computation. Like for example, nung grade 10 kami, I have this classmate na sobrang talino niya talaga sa math, and siya yung madalas na nilalaban talaga when it comes to math competition. So one time, I can't remember the specific topic, pero alam kong algebraic expression yon. Grade 10 kami noon. And parang pinag-compute siya ng teacher namin sa board, and nagulat kami kasi parang sabi nun, parang mali naman yung gawa niya kasi different yung way of computing niya, ganun. Sabi namin, ay parang iba siya, hindi siya same kay sir. So, akala namin mali. Pero nagulat kami kasi sabi ng teacher namin, tama. So, di ba, parang ang nangyari doon, hindi sinabi ng teacher namin na mali yung way of computation ng classmate. Instead, parang sinabi niya na tama yon. Kumbaga, in a generative kind of assessment, parang, ayun nga, it supports discovery and growth. Hindi lang siya naka-stuck sa isang standard lang ng computation. Nagigets ba? Sana nagigets nyo. Pa-heart react naman if nagigets. Ayun, so mukhang nagets nyo naman. Now, let's proceed to the practicability. So when we say, very familiar naman tayo sa practicability, but in learning assessment, practicability means be grounded in the realities of the world as it is, fitting with boundaries of both instructors and students' time and labor. So though minsan this method of learning assessment ay nagkakaroon ng conflict sa values, naniniwala pa rin ang iba na assessments fails to be rigorous, generative, participatory, or co-creative if it is not feasible and manageable for students and instructors. So in short, this learning assessment does not encourage idealism but rather realism. Mas nakatuon ito sa kung ano nga ba ang nangyayari sa paligid o sa mundo. So from the word itself, practical, you're being practical. So paano natin ma-visualize yung pagiging practical? So, for example, in my situation, despite wanting to take an architectural program way back, nung nag-apply ako sa PUP, I chose to choose education for practicality. Kumbaga, since nga free naman na yung tuition, I mean, there's no tuition fee naman sa PUP, and gusto ko naman, since siya talaga, parang isa na to sa dream ko maging teacher, so I took this program na lang. So this kind of practicality wherein mas pinipili mo kung ano yung kakayanin mo in a real world setup. And ayun, I think pwede siya mag-example in practicability. Next naman is the full participation. So ano nga ba itong full participation na to? So assessments should be equally accessible to and encouraging of learning for all students, empowering all to thrive regardless identity or background. So ito yung sinasabi na everyone should be fair, accessible, and inclusive when it comes to assessments. All should have the opportunity to assess and be assessed without being unfair. So sinasabi rin na this kind of learning assessment requires the multiple and varied methods of assessment that are inclusive of diverse identities, racial, ethnic, linguistic, gendered, sexual class, and etc. And their varied perspectives, skills, and cultures of learning. So for example, paano ba natin ito maano? So for example, you have a classmate or student na from different race or culture. For example, sabihin na natin na galing siyang China or galing siyang Korea. So kapag inassess mo sila, you must assess them fairly, not minding who and where they're from, who they are and what kind of people they are. It shouldn't stop you from giving them the fair and accurate assessment they truly deserve. So ayun yung sa full participation wherein hindi natin hinahayaan na meron nila left out, hindi natin kumbaga pinopromote natin na magkaroon ng inclusivity sa klase. And yung way of assessment natin or assessing our peers, hindi siya nakabase sa kung sino sila or kung saan sila nanggaling. Gets ba? Now, let's proceed to the last part or the last values or the kind of assessment, which is the co-creation. So co-creation, this empowers students to become subjects of, not just objects of, learning assessment. So that is, learning assessments may be more effective and generative when assessment is done with not or two students. So in co-creative approaches, students' involvement enhances the meaningfulness, engagement, motivation, and metacognitive reflection of assessment, yielding greater learning. So sa co-creation daw, when it is put into practice, it should encourage students to be involved because the real essence of the assessment is through them. Ayun. So so from the word itself, co-creation, it means collaboration and creating something collaboratively. Sabi pa, co-creation daw of learning and teaching occurs when staff and students work collaboratively with one another to create components of curricula and or pedagogical approaches. Additionally po, sa co-creating with students po is a process by which students collaborate with teachers in designing their own learning experience with an emphasis on students' perspective. It is based on constructivist learning theory. Pag sinabi natin constructivist learning theory, it promotes that learners must construct knowledge and meaning from lived experiences rather than from the passive taking information. And implicit in the concept of co-creation is a recognition that teaching is not a one-way process flowing from teacher to student. Kumbaga, palagi yung way of assessment, hindi lang siya teacher to students, but rather student to teacher din. Kumbaga, two-way process siya and never siya magiging one-way process lang. And meaningful learning opportunities are made possible by honoring students' voices. So, I think that would be all, and I hope you learned from our topic. So, thank you po.